From JBS Studios in Greater New York, this is the JBS News Update with Teisha Bader.
I'm Teisha Bader with the JBS News Update for Thursday, January the 9th, 2020. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke over the phone yesterday with President Trump, reportedly about the situation with Iran and its recent missile attack on U.S. military bases in Iraq. The White House released a brief statement only saying that the two discussed critical bilateral and regional issues. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo gave the annual State of the State address in Albany yesterday, and delivering an invocation just beforehand was Rabbi Chaim Rottenberg, whose Monsey home was the site of the stabbing attack during Hanukkah.
But I will also never forget how we continued to celebrate after the attack, how we continued to rejoice in the miracle of Hanukkah. I will never forget the resilience on display that night and in the following days, the resilience of Jewish people and the resilience of New York.
In the governor's remarks, he addressed the Monsey attack, honoring Joseph Gluck, who fought back against the assailant.
We applaud his heart, his courage. He is the definition of New York bravery. He's here with us today. Let's recognize Joseph Gluck.
Cuomo also vowed to fight anti-Semitism and other forms of hate in New York State.
Hate and discrimination have no place in New York. It is ignorant, it is intolerant, and it is illegal. We've had a disturbing number of discrimination attacks, but the greatest increase has been in the number of anti-Semitic attacks. Government's first responsibility, protect the people, and we will. We will prosecute these crimes to the greatest extent of the law, and we now must change the law to address this growing threat. Let's acknowledge displays of hate-filled mass violence for what they are. They are domestic terrorism. That's what they are.
The governor also noted several measures, including growing the Hate Crimes Task Force and adding classes about the core American value of religious freedom in public schools. And a hearing was held by the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom this week on global efforts to counter anti-Semitism. Speakers included Simon Wiesenthal Center's Associate Dean Rabbi Abraham Cooper, U.S. Special Envoy to Monitor Anti-Semitism Ilan Carr, and Holocaust historian Deborah Lipstadt, who shared her views on how anti-Semitism is different than other forms of hate.
Anti-Semitism is unlike other prejudices because it comes from the right and from the left. Usually a prejudice only comes from one side. But here, this is the one place where the right and the left, the far right, the far left, however you want to describe it, exist in perfect and happy harmony.
U.S. Special Representative to Iran Brian Hook visited the Wiesenthal Center's Museum of Tolerance yesterday to speak about the U.S. policy on Iran and also speak out against anti-Semitism, joined by Cooper as well as the center's founder and dean, Rabbi Marvin Heir. Well, a local NAACP official in New Jersey was suspended for remarks he made about Orthodox Jews in the Garden State just weeks after the deadly shooting in Jersey City at a kosher supermarket. James Harris, who leads the Education Committee for the Montclair branch of the civil rights organization, was suspended for 6 months after giving a speech about gentrification in New Jersey, where he said the Hasidics are generally not too friendly to anybody other than themselves. So some stress started to develop, he said, because people remember Brooklyn and Lakewood. Are we going to be displaced, he asked, by these people who are not all that friendly? Also saying that the Jewish community controls the Board of Education and the City Council, spending money, he said, sending their kids to yeshiva and gutting the budget for Black and Latino students in public schools. The president of the Montclair NAACP, Al Pelham, said some of Harris's overall comments and tone were in clear contradiction of the organization's mission, and thus, he said, the Montclair branch condemns them. Harris apologized for his remarks, which he said were meant to focus on the impact of gentrification on lower socioeconomic communities. Unfortunately, he said, I used terms and examples that have been interpreted as anti-Semitic. Prolific Jewish screenwriter, director, and actor Buck Henry has died. Born Buck Henry Zuckerman, Henry was nominated for an Oscar for his screenplay for The Graduate and for co-directing the film Heaven Can Wait. He also co-created and wrote the television show Get Smart, which won him an Emmy. Henry also wrote the screenplays of Catch-22 and What's Up, Doc, among many others. He was one of the most frequent hosts and guests of Saturday Night Live and acted in many films and television shows. Buck Henry died of a heart attack yesterday at the age of 89. Honduras announced this week that it will designate Lebanese Iranian-backed Hezbollah as a terror organization. Israel's Foreign Minister Yisrael Katz called it an important step in the worldwide war against terrorism. The American Jewish Committee, who advocates for such actions, lauded the decision by Honduras. The leaders of the Conference of Presidents of Major American Jewish Organizations, Arthur Stark and Malcolm Hoenlein, thanked Honduran President Juan Hernández and his government for taking a strong stance against terrorism, noting that Honduras joins its neighbor Guatemala and many other countries around the world in rightfully recognizing Hezbollah as a purveyor of violence and death, which must be given no quarter, they said, in any country which opposes terrorism, expressing hope that other countries would follow suit. Taking a look now at our programming for tonight on JBS for Thursday, January the 9th at 7 o'clock, it's Talmud Study. At 8, Professor Mordechai Kedar looks at the rise of Islamic terror. At 9, a panel discussion on the Monsey attack. And coming up at 6:30 tonight, Shachar Azani speaks with Sarit Zehavi about the killing of Qasem Soleimani and Iran's global terror networks. Then with Ambassador Daniel Carmon, who lost his wife in the Iranian-backed terror attack on the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires in the 90s. That's tonight on In the News. And that's the JBS News Update for Thursday, January the 9th, 2020. I'm Teisha Bader.